question I was asking myself as I was preparing for tonight. Well, as a second-generation wrestler here, I was a fourth-generation graduate. And as Dwayne said, with 2 kids, one graduating this year, one graduating next year, will be fifth-generation graduates at RA Long. We definitely have a rich pride and a rich tradition going all the way back to RA Long, all the way back to my great-grandfather. So the question I was pondering, what does it mean to be a lumberjack? Let me start with this. Robert Alexander Long was a timber baron from Kansas City who, in 1921, broke ground on this city, which was the first privately funded planned city of its size. And thanks to his business success and wealth, he was able to personally fund in full or in part many of the buildings in this community, including this one we're in right now. Now here's the funny thing though. He never set out to build a city. He never set out to do all these great things and have a school named after him and donate all these buildings in the community and donate buildings or donate money for churches to be built. That was never any of his original goal. In fact, he never even planned on being in the timber industry. Robert Long, when he was young, started out trying to sell hay and sucked at it. So he dismantled his barn, sold off the lumber, made a bunch of money, and got inspired to pursue the timber industry. And despite all of his business success, it was simply the catalyst for the thing that would be his greatest achievement and his legacy, the city of Longview. And that's because while his goal was to succeed in business, his mission was to help as many other people thrive and find success in that process and in that pursuit. Now, this is the point of the speech where you're probably wondering to yourself, why the heck is this guy spending so much time talking about Robert Long instead of telling funny stories about wearing spandex and fighting people in half-empty gyms in the 90s? And that's partly because the funniest stories from wrestling are way too inappropriate to tell in this kind of a setting. Okay? You've seen the uniforms we wear, right? You can imagine the stories not good for public settings. But it's also because I want to emphasize that I wouldn't have had any success on wrestling mats or further throughout my life and my career as a husband, as a father, if it hadn't been for the many people who shared Robert Long's principle of helping as many people thrive as possible. Coaches like Chris Fritch and Jim Buchan, who coached the program my freshman year, kept the program alive when it was on the verge of being collapsed and merged into Mark Morris's. Ron Lindsay was the Mark Morris coach at the time, who later went on to legendary fame here coaching at RA Long, who refused to let those programs collapse together because he knew it would set this program back for years if that were the case. My dad, who was not only my wrestling coach my whole life, but specifically coached the entire team my sophomore year, cashing in vacation days and floaters and calling in sick to make it to matches. Often going into working a graveyard shift at the mill after spending all day at a wrestling tournament, coming home that next morning looking like a zombie. Even my mom, who can be heard on many of the old wrestling match footage that I have, giving me sound wrestling advice of, pin him! Thanks, Mom. I was trying. You might not have been able to tell, but I was trying that. And especially people like Darren Dahlmer and Daryl Sims, who turned our struggling program around my junior and senior years, and helped me turn the corner and come back from the Tacoma Dome with a couple of state medals over those years, whose voices I can still hear in my head during tough moments, especially Dolly's raspy voice reminding us that everything is easy when you feel like doing it. The real champions, they do it when they don't feel like doing it. You should have trademarked that, Dolly, because you would be a rich man for as many times as I have audibly uttered that phrase to myself when I have to do something hard or difficult in my life. And talking with other wrestlers who came years after me, they all say the same thing. I still hear that voice when I'm up against something hard. And all the sadistic practice partners that I ever had, who we enjoyed exchanging mutual beatings, I'm honored to be recognized tonight because it highlights all the efforts of so many others. And I'll conclude with this. As a challenge to everybody in this room, Robert Long was 74 years old when Longview was incorporated, which means he had already lived 88% of his life. 88% of his life before he did the thing that would go on to be his most recognized piece of his legacy. And he had no idea that his efforts would bear so much fruit for the next 100 years. And while I know Longview isn't a perfect community, it is whatever we make it out to be. It is what we put into it. It is what we put into it for our kids and what we want them to be able to grow up and experience. And you don't have to be wealthy to make a difference and leave a legacy. Although if you are wealthy, Dwayne McCabe would love to take you out to lunch and talk to you about a few things you'd love to get done. Yes, you can see him afterwards. But seriously, you don't have to be wealthy to leave a legacy. You can simply live your life in the spirit and mission of Robert Long. And just do your best to bless and help others thrive and find success whenever you're in a position to do so. And you never know the impact those efforts may go on to produce long after you're gone. I have been the beneficiary of so many people like that. It's my goal to pay it forward. That's, to me, what it means to be a lumberjack. So thank you for this honor. Go Jacks.